Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters New York City. We have had a terrific first semi-final, and we'll look forward to a second one in a few moments' time. Before we get there, let's just update you on the results so far throughout the Intel Extreme Masters in New York. As you can see, confirmation that Naniwa, with balls the size of Jupiter, has made his way through to the grand final after a 3-2 win against Shun. That leaves us with just 2 men remaining at the Intel Extreme Masters in New York. It is, as some would say, the battle of the balls. That's right, it's Red Bull Startail. It's going to be a team kill no matter what we get. Please welcome on the stage, Curious and Life. And stepping into the breach for this one, ladies and gentlemen, your commentary team for our second semi-final. Take it away, Nathanius and Kalaris.
Thanks very much, Paul. Welcome to the caster's desk here for the second semi-final of the day. As I'm here with Nathanius. After that first series, man, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. That was a fantastic PVZ. Naniwa, I mean, the bravery it takes. You have everything on the line. Just go full out with that 2-gate. But we do need to find out who his opponent will be in the finals, Kalaris.
Yes, we do. We have Life and Curious fighting for that last spot in the grand finals. As Curious and Life now begin their vetoes here for ZVZ. Now, we were talking about prior, we've done a lot of ZVZ casting so far here during the tournament. We've had some great ZVZs, and there's not a huge, big differences in the maps that come along. My personal pick for something that is different is that Derelict Watcher, which does go away straight away here from Curious. So, you know, Curious, we've seen him been using Festus in the past in the CVZ stuff, and I feel that this is a good veto for him.
Yeah, we really talked about it, especially compared to the map that we had on Belshir Vestige, where the twists and turns of the map really made the Infestor play a lot more effective because there's just so many more choke points. Derelict Watcher being wide open seems like a reasonable veto, and we're going to be kicking things off on Frost. And you made a great point. There's been a pretty good amount of ZVZ here. In the quarterfinals, though, to get to this point, both players did beat Protosses. Weren't quite in the same group, but they had a good amount of ZVZs to play in their own groups. Life taking out players like TLO and his, but this is still going to be really interesting because these two players didn't quite clash heads yet.
Well, if you want to think about it really in depth, we had Life was defeated by Donray Gu during the open bracket, and then in the groups we had Curious defeat Donray Gu. So if you think about it, when we have the third into the option, and we add that third, we see that maybe Curious has a slight advantage. I would give Curious a slight advantage. I think his ZVZ is really strong, and the win ratios reflect that, as he's currently sat at around a 68% win ratio across Heart of the Swarm, whereas you have a player like Life who's sat at a 53% win ratio. But we still cannot discount that Life has absolutely phenomenal control.
Yeah, it's really, and it's kind of interesting that you say that. It's a battle between not necessarily players that aren't as good. They're both very high caliber, but which one is more on fire at the moment? Curious took out a lot of great opponents, even to get into this tournament, taking out players like Flash earlier on, taking out Innovation in the qualifiers. It really comes down to how prepared is Life to bring this, because Curious just seems to have a lot of momentum behind him going into this match. He's played phenomenally so far.
And there we have Curious here. Curious, considering the Korean qualifiers come all the way through from the very beginning stages here in the Intel Extreme Masters New York, and I'll be up and frank and personal with this, he was my pick. He was my pick to go far in this tournament, maybe even win it all. If we see, for me personally, if we saw a Curious versus Naniwa finals, my head would explode. That would be my dream finals. That being said, Life's an amazing player. Life is certainly one of those players that is really on top of things. What's up, Luigi? Yeah. The L doesn't stand for Luigi, it stands for Life.
Yeah, perhaps it does need to be a little bit more red maybe, but I think, and you bring up a very interesting point, as far as which of these players goes on to play against Naniwa, who do you give us a better chance in ZVP, at least against him?
I would go with Curious. Curious is very strong in ZVP. He's never breakable by a 2-base all-in. Very rarely do you see Curious broken by a 2-base all-in. And he went toe-to-toe with one of the best Protosses in the world, SOS, taking it 3-2. Life did absolutely destroy Hero during that series. So now that I think about it, both of them are pretty good against Protoss.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at the way that those two matches played out, though. Life seemed to just have he seemed to have that momentum behind him throughout the whole match. He got the first win off of Hero, and he had a little bit more of an aggressive play style. But Curious SOS, I think, easily one of the best series that we've had so far in this whole tournament. Really just displayed some absolutely fantastic decision-making and a really great use of tech transitions moving throughout. So I think either player that advances, obviously looking at the results between Life and Hero, quite a big threat for Naniwa, but I also think that among the Protoss players they went up against, probably Naniwa is the least predictable out of SOS and Hero.
It's funny because Naniwa's entire road through tournaments, once he gets really, really deep in them, he just seems to meet Zergs all the time. And it's worked wonders for him. But now we have this ZVZ on the way here as we'll find out what's going to happen. Frost is our first map, as we said before. We're just waiting for Life here to get fully set up. As you can see, he's setting up himself, sticking down his mouse mat, sticking away all the cables, making sure that it's like a mouse bungee, I guess, to a certain effect, but just with sticky tape.
It's funny when you're playing your games, especially these pro players often tell you about the last thing you want, uncomfortable setups to have to play on.
Oh yeah.
He's double checking, but it's this match, man. It's going to be tough. We casted a couple ZVZs together so far here. We're trying to get this lobby set up, but I think it was starting off on Frost. It's a pretty big map. There's a reasonable amount of chokes, turns, and twists, and we saw a little bit of the usage of that when Naniwa played versus Hyun on this map. He was able to use force fields. I mean, of course, the comparison to that for this match would be potentially fungals in those narrow areas where the armies can really get funneled through at slow points. So it's very interesting considering the size of the map.
For me, in ZVZ on a map like Frost, it's not only... Generally in ZVZ, it's like when you take your third, who's going to pressure that and stuff. But for me, it's not only when you take your third, it's also where you take your third that's very, very important. Because the way in which the defensive setup works is that there is the expansion, say like the one that's open. People knowing this map generally know what I'm talking about, the one that's open, the third that's open. That one, I feel that one's like the better option, depending on where you've spawned, of course, compared to the one that's down in the pocket that does have a little bit more defensive architecture. The reason I say that is because moving your army between the second and the open third is much easier to defend and establish defense, as opposed to the one down to the pocket where your opponent can start jumping around and moving around. And it's really difficult to get a good spread of units to defend both of those locations, I feel.
Yeah, I actually can't really disagree with you there. And I think another thing, considering that all spawns are available on Frost, if both players spawn in the top positions like we saw, this actually happened quite a few times.
Yeah,
we haven't had a lot of cross-spawn Frost games in this tournament, but that also means that in the later stages, Mutilus play, it's a little bit easier to reach your opponent's side of the field. And like you said, it's just, I like that you can concentrate your forces to defend in a certain area. It kind of reminds me of when you have Derelict Watcher. It's very easy to sit between the natural and the third base to defend it, even if it is a little bit more open. So that does create that potential, though. Life loves his Zerglings. We could, that opens up the door for a little bit of that harass, the more open bases that you take. So just another one of the interesting dynamics I think that's going to pan into this.
Yeah, we just have a few delays here, guys, just to keep you completely updated as Life is getting himself completely set up and comfortable with his settings. So making sure that he's okay. And we'll now find out what's going to happen in just a little bit. But either of these players advancing on to the grand finals to play against Naniwa would have a legitimately strong chance at placing well in that finals, taking that top spot. But as we've already seen, Naniwa can do anything he wants and win, which is that I really wasn't expecting to win that series after the first two games had fully played out. But got to give it to Naniwa. He'll revive himself from any situation.
Yeah. Another interesting comparison I think to make is that if it were Curious to advance, he favored actually, SOS kind of favored a lot of that Stargate play early on in those matches. And Naniwa also using a pretty strong amount of the Stargate play, focusing on very early Void Rays. So I'm wondering if he'll be perhaps more prepared to go up against him. Maybe Life not quite as anticipating of this, but I think as far as the strategies go, 91 was a bit hard to read, but he did really like to stick to that slightly air Protoss opening throughout his games.
All right, well, we're still just waiting for these guys to get in the game, as well as you actually to get into the game. I have suggested you, so hopefully that will go in just a little bit here. But aside from that, I mean, the Intel Extreme Masters New York has been a really awesome tournament to cast. You know, yesterday and the day before that, maybe even today as well after that first series, have been some of the most fun days I've had casting an event. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. And, well, it's not stopping here. It really isn't. We have a great semi-final on the way. We have a grand final as well here for the Intel Extreme Masters New York. And I think with Naniwa in the final, there is going to be a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people want to see the foreigner player come through. There were several others. We saw glimpses of hope with State taking games off players like Flash, but 91 was really the only foreigner to get through. We do have Life and Curious both in the lobby, so we'll be starting this game in just a few moments' time. But yeah, a really great point. This event has just been incredible. So many people coming in to tune in. The seats all filled. We see Curious.
This is the happiest I've seen Curious ever. Ever.
You know, he's got it. He knows he has a very good chance of making it in here, but both of these players are so good. It's really hard to give either one of them an edge, but you can kind of see, you know, Curious, that little bit of emotion. He must be feeling confident going into this series.
Well, he's playing his teammate. It is a team kill here. StarTale is guaranteed at least one player in that grand final. Will it be Life or will it be Curious? I can only imagine that they've practiced with each other quite a bit. You know, you say that about other teams in foreign scenes and things like that, but oftentimes they don't really practice with much. But being in the same house has a big change on that kind of mentality. As we get into our second semi-final of the day here, best of 5 between StarTale, Life, and Curious. As we have spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner, our Red Zerg, representing StarTale as well as South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Curious.
Back to the stone face, trying to secure that last spot in the finals.
Looking as depressed as ever.
Yes, exactly.
And spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner, we have our Blue Zerg, representing StarTale as well as South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Life. The youngster coming in, trying to get his first Intel Extreme Masters victory here at New York City. But we see once again, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, both players have spawned on the bottom side of the map. No one's going for anything really crazy like a 10 pool. So looking towards a potential mid or late game scenario, do you still feel comfortable with the outer open third base being taken in this spawns? Oh yeah, more so in this one. Like, if they'd have spawned, you know, north and south of one another, then, you know, it's not as amazing, but I still even feel comfortable with it as well, because you can be stretched around always if you take that bottom left one. You know, some people would argue against that. Maybe it's just my personal preference more than anything. But for now, we do have Hatchery First versus Hatchery First here for these guys. And they did send their overlords up to the top. And interestingly enough, the movement of Curious's second overlord is slightly strange. He went up to the top, I'm not quite sure why, to actually spot something, and then he's just going to head off down to that bottom right.
It's a bit interesting considering that as a 4-player map, neither player would know where the other spawns. You wouldn't be looking for any type of rush coming from that direction, at least not this early on, but could just be, again, you know, the individual player's preference. The spawning pool is on the way. We have the gas finishing up now for Life. We'll begin to mine that. No gas just yet for Curious.
The interesting thing is that technically, because he moved that overlord there, they still don't know where either one has spawned. So maybe that is Curious's plan there, because obviously, you know, neither overlord has spotted. If they had spotted it, they're like, oh, that's your second overlord, right? I know you're spawned corner to corner. But, so that's an interesting little move there by Curious. He's keeping his opponent in the dark for just a little bit longer.
Yeah, I feel like, and with the fact that he hasn't actually taken a gas, it's not like he's showing some sort of aggressive opening, but the overlord will be able to come in here. We do have the spawning pool wrapping up, so the queens are on the way to help shove that away. I feel like it's going to be difficult to deny the scouting on maybe the right side gas. This is information, of course. With these spawns being close, I think the speed on the way for Life gives him a pretty decent opportunity to go for some aggression.
He certainly could do, especially if he were to get that scouting information off. But because that queen's about to pop here for Curious, and that'll be extremely difficult indeed. And Well, the Lings are going to head out for Curious now. These are the 2 Lings that he will try and use to wiggle around into his opponent's main, see if he can spot any gas timings. And if he does get up there and sees that gas, then we will see extra diligence in that defense. He's already got 2 Queens out. He's producing a 3rd. He's going to spread that creep at the front a little bit, maybe. And, well, Life, he already gets a Zergling kill.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say about the Overlord scan, I actually do really like what you said about that, especially considering that on this map, there's not really any space to hide behind the main base area with Overlords. The Zergling does come in for Curious, sees the natural, sees the drones, but can he make it to the main base to see the gas? Doesn't seem so.
No, at least counting the saturation at that natural there. Could have been a fake out if Life had transferred a lot of the drones down there, but he kind of gets the indication that his opponent hasn't been building that many Zerglings. There's 10 drones now on the way for Curious, playing very greedily, throwing down that spine crawler because he is playing that greedy. And wow, look how quickly we have that layer on the way here for Life.
It's very interesting because it's one of those situations where since he didn't see the gas timing for Curious, he doesn't know that he didn't take it. But in a Zerg versus Zerg, if you're not looking to be aggressive, getting your lair faster than your opponent is almost always nice. He does manage to get in here, pokes away 1 drone, and he might actually be able to squeeze into the main. He's going to get confirmation of the gas timing. He clicks on the geysers. He sees not even the drones were mining on there. So he knows that he's a little bit faster on this tech side of things. We have the evolution chambers on the way for Curious, and it seems like he's leaning more so towards one of those roach openers that have been, pretty popular actually in this tournament.
Yeah, it looks like maybe that's what Life is anticipating actually. Just after getting full scouting confirmation of his opponent's what to do, sees the double evolution chamber, as you said, sees the layer as well. With his layer this quick, Curious is going to be waiting for something like a 1-1 timing from his side of things, but Life, meanwhile, has been banking up a lot of gas, and he's already got that layer finished, so he could easily transition onto whatever he wants with that Spire, and there we go. That goes down. So he could hit before his opponent's even ready to actually move out.
Yeah, and interesting enough, Curious has not yet made that investment into the upgrades. His Roach Warren is coming close, but he hasn't started any Roach upgrades. He's just putting out 9 Roaches so far. Is there potential for him to just try to go for an early shove here if he's not investing in the upgrades yet?
Well, I'm curious what... did I really say that? He hasn't seen the layer still, right? So he doesn't have full scouting intel as to what his opponent's doing, but if he actually just went with a whole lot of Roaches right now and just said, well, to hell with it with the upgrades, he could do damage. There's a big window there. The Mutalist will eventually pop out, but right now it's just Roaches and Lings. He still doesn't see the 3rd. He must know that there's something going down over there.
Yeah, I mean, the Queen doing a great job of shoving away these Overlords. Tiny bit of a supply block for Curious, but he's getting his own lair. The Roaches are shoving out. There's no Zergling speed, so he's limited in terms of his total capabilities. But these Zerglings will spot the Roaches at the South Tower, getting into a little bit of a fight. Roaches doing a great job of shoving this back, and Curious is bringing that pressure. His upgrades are on the way behind this, so this isn't a committed attack. He wants to do a little bit of damage, maybe cancel or kill this 3rd base if there's not enough from Life, but the Mutalisks are also on the way.
Yeah, with this investment that Curious now has, he actually, I feel he has to kill this 3rd base. If he didn't, that would be an absolute disaster for him. He's going to try and kill off the Queen, but with killing that Queen, that buys him a little bit more time to get the Mutalist out. Now, this hatchery goes down. At the same time, though, Life, realizing that he can't save that hatchery, goes for the counter with the Zerglings, denies the 3rd himself, and now with Mutalisks on the field, he should be able to keep his opponent pinned back whilst he goes for a 3rd. The Queens with the transfuses trying to keep themselves alive and doing a very, very good job about it. Oh, bye-bye Roaches for a little bit.
Yeah, the nice thing, at least about the Roaches being here, is that it forces Life to keep these Mutalisks back at home. He can't run out just yet. Of course, now Curious also has the intel of those Mutalisks being on the map. We see Spore Crawlers on the production tab. And interestingly, to your point, is if you can keep them off of this 3rd base, keep the creep spread from really covering that, it's hard to get a Spore Crawler up there. And with those Mutalisks delaying the 3rd more and more before Hydralisks become a big deal, it could give Life a significant edge. He's restarted his 3rd hatchery. He's still slightly behind, but coming in once again and trying to deny this 3rd of Curious.
And he's going to get it because whilst he killed the 3rd hatch, he also, losing his as well. He took damage, but all of that damage was taken after setting himself up an advantage, even if that were to happen. Killing off those Queens means these Hydralisks and Zerglings have free reign over that 3rd base location, so now Life can take that whilst having full map control behind this, and Curious has no opportunities to move out for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's still just pressuring in with these Mutalisks. The 1 Queen here, very low for Curious. Of course, he doesn't want to lose that. You don't want to lose your injection capabilities, of course, saving the energy for the transfusions. The Spore Crawler takes a couple of shots, but I think he also sees that infestation pit. I think he got a glimpse of that in the back of Curious's mineral line.
Getting it before the upgrade would be great, and yes, he does end up getting it. Very, very nicely done. That's really going to limit the damage that Curious will have as an output. Yes, he has the carapace, but without +1 weapons, +1 weapons adding +2 damage to each roach is much more superior than just having the +1 on the carapace.
And I feel like Life is in a fantastic position in this this setup he has, continuously pressuring this natural. The queens themselves having a really hard time. Pathogen Glands is on the way, but he's forcing Curious playing Festers off of 2 bases. There's not an incredible amount of gas income, and even the drones trying to mine that natural expansion gas are getting picked off as well.
Only one Spore Crawler was not enough at this natural, and Life is exploiting it to the fullest. Behind this, got Lynx on the way. He's even getting melee upgrades on the way as Life. So playing a very heavy Lynx style in the midst of all of this. And gonna try and surround these roaches, and they get completely torn apart. This is a great trade for Life. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been able to hinder that economy any further than just killing the hatchery in that single queen with the initial roach shove. We do have infestors on the way. The infestation pit is coming in for Life, though. He's going to keep all of the options open. 5 infestors, Caleres.
And there is that Contaminate there, just to slow down these upgrades even further. This Mutalisk number kind of getting out of control. 18 are around, but he doesn't want to hang around for too long because Pathogen Glands is done, and those infestors, they're about to pop. He's actually going to get the spawning pool. No, he doesn't want to stick around for just too long, as those queens will deny him. And there you go. Spawning pool will go down.
He's playing with fire. He said that the infestors, it only takes a couple fungal growths with all of those queens under there, especially near a spore crawler. But there's the hive now on the way for Life. And with these melee upgrades, what are the chances we see him going to Ultralisks?
I love this style from Life. In terms of how it plays out against the very Hyun-esque style of double evolution chambers, no gases, 4 gases instantly, and then trying to really focus on your 1-1 upgrades. This style is really hurting Curious badly that Life is exhibiting, because now with that hive on the way, when he gets those Ultralisks out, they're going to do pretty well against these roaches. Infestors not too good against Ultralisks, I've heard.
Yeah.
But the Infested Terrans can mess with the pathing, so we have to keep that into account.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that the Infested Terrans do more to slow the Ultralisk down than the fungal growth does, of course. They can't be slowed or stopped by abilities. There are 7 Infestors on the field for Curious. Life is continuing to run around with these Zerglings. He's actually coming over toward the left side. There are a few roaches for Curious that will be able to spot this, but he's trying to continue to deny the expansions of Curious. His third base is halfway done at not even 15 minutes.
Oh, and these Zerglings running around and getting the cancellation on this third once again. Life is playing a super highly mobile style, which is really hurting Curious. And even during all of this, Curious in his natural threw down another Spore Crawler. It's a small detail, but having to throw down extra defenses at this particular moment in time is everything is hurting him. Life is playing a phenomenal game number 1, and with the Ultralisk Cavern, Curious can't move across the map. He can't really do anything. Yes, he can try and engage into these Mutalisks, but they're going to keep his opponent really pinned back.
I mean, this map is so big. The Infestors, obviously not as quick as those Mutalisks. He can dart around him if he tries to go for some level of counterattack. We see a couple of Swarmos coming out, perhaps a little bit of a misclick, but we do have Burrow coming in for Curious. What can he really do in this situation? And I really like that you're pointing out, getting the extra static defense is so difficult when he can't even get additional income.
Yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. Curious is completely up against the wall. The Mutalisk fly in, tries to land a fungal growth, doesn't get it in the end. Mutalisk very, very mobile, trying to fly around all these ledges. That's so many infestors that he has, but they're not being useful at all. I really feel that the use of those infestors is eventually going to be in that straight-up engagement with Infested Terrans to mess around with those Ultralisks. That's going to be the one opportunity that Curious has here. But again, the third gets cancelled, and Life is completely dominating this position. Nice fungal, though.
Yeah, he does manage to clip a few of those Mutalisks, but at this point, it's not really part of Life's game plan anymore. He's still bringing the harass. He's still doing damage with the Zerglings, with the Mutalisks, but now 7 Ultralisks on the production tab, 34 Zerglings. He's getting his +2 melee attack upgrades, and with that third base, he's actually going to be able to start banking. He's actually taken a 4th base over at the top right. Just roaches and infestors are going to have a really difficult time versus this, I feel.
Yeah, the Mutalisks have just bought him so much time to do anything he wants behind this. Oh, that's a good fungal. That's a very good fungal. Transfuses on the queens to try and keep those alive, and he will chain that fungal. There is no way that Curious is going to let those Mutalisks get away. And meanwhile, the roaches, greeted by the wave of Ultralisks as well, they chase them back. He needs Infested Terrans with the army to deal with the Ultras.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The roaches have a decent amount of firepower, of course, want to run away from the attack that could come from those Ultralisks, but if the Infested Terrans get thrown behind the Ultras, then it kind of, like as you stated earlier, blocks the pathing, preventing them from leaving, almost like force fields like these Baneling eggs around this Ultralisk.
Yeah, poor little guy, he can't move, and now gets out after all his little friends have been able to morph in. Curious now setting up another attack up to the top right, and this is where Curious's skill set excelled in ZVP. The ability to just separate up some of these roaches, pressure this base up to the top, maybe go somewhere else, but he's going to have to defend whilst all of this is going on. How much damage can he do here? That's a lot of Ultras and a lot of Banelings.
Yeah, coming in, blocking that army off. We still have the Zerglings hitting that natural, as you'd stated, some splintering off towards the main base at the same time. Continue to butter these roaches. Corners the roaches with the Ultralisk. A burrow to save a barely few of them, but how much can they really do?
Oh, I was taking a drink there and I almost spat it out. That was those roaches being up against that piece of architecture there. That is sad for them. They're not going to be able to get out anytime soon. If he morphs in one Overseer, then that's a great trade for him. And meanwhile, these Zerglings not doing too badly either. Oh, this is life's maxed out. Curious's 140 supply. This is hard for Curious.
It's so difficult because he's finally weird. His hatchery is finished at the third base, but still needs to get the drones there. Still needs to watch out for this non-stop harass. Life even has an Infestor thrown into the mix. He has a good number of Banelings, interestingly enough. If the units get caught, he can grab them. Probably the one good thing the Infestors can do is block those, but he's coming in. Does manage to fungal some of these Banelings. A nice catch for Curious, but he's going to need some fantastic trades. He doesn't have the resources to match the army supply, and Zerglings are in the main base. Again, he's just going to try to barrel on through.
Oh, having all of these Zerglings is an interesting choice here from Life because he doesn't actually have adrenal glands. He could be utilizing these Zerglings a little bit better once these straight-up engagements come. But now, Curious has to fall back. Life is still maxed out. His army is still very strong. He has links up to the south to be able to counterattack any economy that he wants to. He's basically starving Curious out and saying, if you want to win this game, if you want to win game number 1, you've got to bring the fight to me. Otherwise, I'm just not going to let you have a single base whatsoever.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about the way that Curious has been doing this, though, is despite being behind, he is trying to play as patiently as possible. He really hasn't tried to force too much except that roach engagement in the northeast. This shows his supply is slowly climbing. He won't have the bank, but there's still that opportunity for a miracle engagement as more Zerglings run into the main base.
Easy peasy, my friend. Just run straight on in and do whatever damage you wanted to. Kill off a Hydralisk then, whatever. Admittedly, with adrenal glands, it will go down a little bit quicker. But he's going to have +3 weapons very soon. And,
Banelings from Life rolling into that third base. Drones being destroyed left and right in a vat of green acid as the Ultralisk pounce in. The Infestor's caught. The Blinding Cloud from these Vipers trying to slow the army as well. And Life is barreling through this, trying to push out Zerglings behind this force. And he's just going right off through Curious, almost below 100 supply now.
Desperation for Curious. He tries to land fungals on these Ultralisks. That's not slowing him down. GG. Game number 1 goes to Life after what was a very, very impressively played out game number 1. He really dealt with his opponent. I would almost say, to a certain degree, that was kind of blind counter. Like, just a straight-up counter to what we were seeing Curious doing with that kind of double upgrade roach style that hits at that particular time. There was the adaptation from Curious that went with a few roaches before the upgrades were even getting kicked in, and it was an attempt at making something work. But with that quicker layer, that quicker Spire, that quicker Mutalisks, what are you going to do, roaches?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes in Zerg versus Zerg, you play the defensive style, get your speed up, get your Baneling Nest. Life, he didn't go for an early Baneling Nest. He went straight for that lair and was able to abuse the faster tech. It's something that gets talked about a lot, but almost always the Zerg player on the other side has that opportunity to get his third base up. Life didn't give Curious that opportunity. He came in with the Mutalisks and endlessly just keeping him off of that third base. Playing 2-base Infestor like that, you have no choice but to turtle. And I mean, he lost the game with his third base still barely mining. It was a very rough game for Curious.
All right, game number 2, Polar Knight will be the map of choice. And if we see Life go for some very, very quick layer and Mutalisk play again, I really like that on this map. There's a lot of room for those Mutalisks to be an absolute nuisance. But I think maybe we see a change-up from Curious. I think after game number 1, maybe we see a change-up. Maybe we see his scouting be a little bit more thorough, a bit more methodical. It is a 1v1 map, so he can get that scouting off a little bit easier here, so he's not going to be taken by surprise as quickly.
Another important thing to note about that as well, the Mutalisks not only have a lot of space to attack main bases from thanks to the air positioning, but that also means that Overlord can get there and scout the gases from a rather safe position. So the information, I think, is going to be much more easy to access for both players.
All right, game number 2 here for the Intel Extreme Masters New York, second semi-final of the day, as we have StarTale versus StarTale here to see who advances onto the finals to play against Naniwa. Spawning up to the north, we have our StarTale representative as well as South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Curious. And down to the south, our Blue Zerg representing StarTale as well as South Korea as well. Give it up for Life.
Man, he showed some good play in that game. Just constant domination while still being able to take his expansion. The only real hit he took that whole match was the shove on his third base with those roaches, and that was while he was setting himself up for that late game advantage.
Calculated risks, absolute calculated risks. He knows that, you know, if his opponent's going to do that, there is investment required for that. And obviously, with that kind of style, not having Gliori Constitution, having Zergling speed yourself, and those Zerglings getting over to that third base, how much are you really going to be able to reinforce there? And then getting those 2 queens as well sets up beautifully for those Mutalisks to have the domination in that third base location. So Life played, I can't emphasize how impressed I was by Life's game number 1.
Yeah, it's such a stressful position to be in for Curious as well. When you're locked into your own base, you're forced to throw down so much static defense without really having the economy. It's like saying, well, I'd like to move forward tech, I'd like to expand, but because there's just so much pressure, you have to invest it elsewhere, and it's just not, it wasn't very effective for him. We have the spawning pool first for our Red Zerg player, Curious. And Life, he's just going hatch first. He still feels comfortable.
Certainly so. Curious can't really do too much with this spawning pool timing, sadly for him, so he'll claim his hatchery as well, get those double queens out and catch up with that all-important lava that is so crucial to manage properly here in this matchup. And, well, Life's going to know what his opponent's up to. The thing is that Curious now can get in with the Overlord and see his opponent's gas timings if he wants to, which will give him the heads up that 1 gas has already gone down.
Yeah, and this is kind of par for the course. That's what we've seen from Life so far in this match. He's not changing it up too much, but it looks like we are seeing a little bit of a deviation from Curious. He is going to be taking his gas, so he's not going to go for that same style of potential double evolution chamber with the roaches, but rather he's keeping that option open to not only defend against anything aggressive that Life might bring out, but it also keeps Life honest with that potential for him to attack Life.
Yeah, it's really important here just to go toe-to-toe with your opponent. Of course, you do still see people like Yun trying to defend against that and then eventually getting those gases later on, but it does make for a more stressful early game. Very, very stressful. If your opponent sees that you have no gases early on, then having link speed as well as maybe even a Baneling Nest to just completely pressure you there, that's a tall order to deal with. And we've seen players, even in the, I think it was the GSTL, when someone was going up against Hiver, just try and deal with that by throwing down like 7 evolution chambers at the front of their wall whilst transitioning onto roaches. And you can do it, but it is a stressful time.
I think I saw that game, just putting out endless amounts of walling, but it's so difficult if your opponent can get on top of you like that. Really being caught off guard is one of the biggest threats in this matchup, especially if you open up gasless. So I can't really disagree with him playing this safe. In fact, he's not even fully mining the gas to get his Zergling speed. Curious, he's playing this rather slow, not full saturation. I wonder if Life is, he's actually doing the same thing. Neither player's actually rushing towards that Zergling speed.
Spine to spine, and they're just going to keep themselves well defended in that regard. It's like just an insurance policy, basically. I don't think it's going to be too useful just yet. Maybe if like a Zergling or 2 try and sneak past, but hello, Life, with your lovely, lovely layer.
Yeah, I was going to say, he actually had the gas for speed, decided not to start it, just went straight for a very quick layer once again. And you said this map is good for the Mutalisk play. I don't disagree. There's a lot of airspace. You can even attack the natural mineral line from behind due to that back rock potential 4th base. And with the evolution chamber starting up, with this layer and only 1 evolution chamber, we did see Life stick to just 1 upgrade when he started going into the Mutalisks, only that melee attack.
All right, and the Roach Warren will go down as well here for Life. So he's going to play a little bit of a different style, but it's still something that can hit pretty hard if your opponent isn't prepared for it. Now, I quite like the change-up from Life to say, I'm not going to go for the speed this time, as you know, he was scouted out. So Curious all the while, maybe assuming that speed could be on the cards, and might not pressure himself. Well, although that being said, 10 Lings are on the way.
Yeah, that Zergling speed is coming close for Curious, and with that very quick +1 Roach attack upgrade on the way, with the fast Lair, he could get Roach speed very quickly. There is a little bit of a potential timing. Those Roaches with +1 attack take out Zerglings really, really fast.
Yeah, unless Life identifies this could really backfire for him, actually not getting that Zergling speed. He needs Roaches, and he starts 6 right now. Just, again, as another insurance policy here against something that his opponent will be putting on. He really needs to deny those Zerglings from getting into this natural location, as they will head out across the map, and eventually, here by the Overlords, they are now seen. So Roaches and Queens position themselves at this natural, and I don't think this is going to do too much for Curious, sadly.
Yeah, being able to block this off. It's all about just making sure that you're there when they arrive. The Roaches can deal with these, of course. They have that range advantage. The Zerglings go over. They're going to check for a third base. Nothing really to see here. The Lair and the Roach Horn are also coming in for Curious, so he's not going to stick just on this. He's also started double upgrades, but that +1 Roach attack is going to finish much faster. There is that potential that he could shove out here instead of taking a third base.
Well, he's got 3 Overlords on the way, so I think he just goes Roach, Roach, Roach from here on out, and that is going to be a lot of Roaches. Of course, Curious needs to keep an eye at the front of his opponent's base to see what's going on. He doesn't even have a 4th Gas Geyser behind all of this, so it's just going to be a lot of Roaches. He isn't committing to that longer game. +1 as well as Clear Reconstitution are timed out very nicely here. This could be a perfect timing for Life to now push across the map and do crippling damage to Curious, but he's done a very smart thing. He's left Lings at the other side. He's going to go for the counterattack, but Life's already prepared for it.
A fantastic play here. Curious even saw the Roach speed coming, so he had an idea that this attack would be coming. He split those Zerglings off. No luck just yet, and Life is here. He's actually going to try to catch these Queens out in the center of the field. He does get a surround on them. These are very important for Life to get the transfuses onto those Roaches, and they're just going to be completely forfeited here in the center of the map.
Really, really nice catch there for Curious, but still, it still poses a lot of threat, because right now it's 28 Roaches against 11. There are 7 more on the way for Life, whilst only 3 on the way for Curious, because Curious doesn't really have that much lava left. He can't produce that much. He's going to get the upgrades as well. This is a fantastic pickup for Life, a fantastic timing. Transfuses go down for Curious, but I don't think that Curious can hold on. This is a lot of pressure here by Life with the reinforced Roaches as well. Drones come off the line. He's in a lot of trouble.
He's doing everything he can to try to stop this push, but a very smart way, taking out the Spinecrawler before he can even transfuse it, and the drones trying to run back, but there's a nice supply lead. Life of 110 to 77, gets the second evolution chamber, no upgrades for you, and he's just continuing, waiting for those reinforcements, trying to play patiently away from the Broodlings, but still getting on top of his opponent's Roaches. Curious only has 1 Queen to help aid this fight. No transfuses are available, and it's that +1 attack coming in. Life is looking so good.
The fact that he got those upgrades as well was such that it was the cherry on top here for Life as he continues to plow on through. He's killed off quite a few drones. He's got that drone advantage. He's going to push this back. Despite Curious having the reinforcement path here that is a little bit shorter, Life just has too much at his opponent's doorstep, and drone after drone will end up dying once these Roaches go down. I think even Life was a little bit indecisive there about what he wanted to go, but it doesn't really matter because he has such a supply advantage. GG for game number 2. Life is executing this series so well.
Another fantastic timing chosen by Life. And this, I mean, more so the timing of not necessarily killing the third base like he chose with the Mutalisk in the first game, but hitting a Roach attack that not only hit before any upgrades would be done for Curious, but Curious playing a little bit more of an economic with the double evolution chamber and trying to get the Speedling attack. It punished that setup so well. No carapace for the Lings, no upgrades at all. He got in there perfectly in time to just completely smash him. And I don't have much to say. Life is looking fantastic with this 2-0 lead.
Dude, that second game build is one of those ones that I really want to copy, because the way it times out against that kind of like double upgrade Roach style is really, really nice. That being said, though, I feel that Curious didn't fully identify that was going to be the case. Yes, he poked forwards with the Zerglings, but maybe he thought that those Roaches initially built by his opponent were there to just stop that Zergling attack, right? And maybe he thought that Life wanted to do something different, maybe take a third base, maybe try and do something from that point. But now, Life sits at a 2-0 lead here in this best of 5 in the semifinals, and is on the verge of advancing onto the grand finals to play against Naniwa. Any of these 2 players playing against Naniwa in the finals is like, for me, dream finals. Boom, head explode.
Yeah, this is setting itself up to be potentially great, but Curious still has a chance. He needs to really bring things back here. Belshir Vestige is going to be the scene for this potentially last game of the semifinals. I feel like it's a map, it's been around for a very long time. This should be a map where both players are comfortable on. Polar Knight, a little bit more in the new range of the maps that were more recently added to the pool. Is there anything crazy he could throw out here? Is he just going to try to do standard play again?
Well, you mentioned the word pool. I think it's time for the life early pool, my friend. I think that might come out here on Belshir Vestige to see if Curious can deal with that. Might be the case, or Life might just play it a little bit safer. But I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna put my foot in the water and say we will have the early pool. We'll see now as we get on to game number 3 here in the semifinals between StarTale Life and StarTale Curious. Let's jump into game number 3. As we have spawning up to the top left-hand corner here as our red Zerg. Representing StarTale, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Curious.
He needs to do a lot to come back in this series, Kalaris. He's down way far.
Oh yeah, and spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg representing StarTale as well. Give it up for Life. Darn.
The first thing to note, both players are building Overlord, so no Life early pull.
Oh well.
He did pull that off a few times earlier in earlier
did.
ZVZ series when you have that lead, and you can't really fault him. I think in this situation, I can see what you're saying because you're
worth
up,
a stab in the dark,
I mean, you're up 2-0.
Yeah.
It's a situation where you still have 2 more games that you can win afterwards with the macro play if it doesn't work out. But I feel like he said to himself, I just want to make sure I play this out. Don't take any extraordinary risks and just try to win straight up and end this now.
Yeah, as I say, it was worth a stab in the dark, but whatever. Here we are. We're on Belshir Vestige. We have the Overlords going in the standard directions, and it looks like we will see a pool first for Life. Now, the way in which this pool does time out means that Curious, if he wants to go in there and spot this 2 gas timings, there will be a queen out present to deal with that, as will Curious have one. So it's going to be a little bit harder for them to get the scouting, a little bit riskier if they don't want to lose that first Overlord.
Yeah, and I think another important thing to consider is that with that potential risk, we were thinking about that potential of the early pool. Curious has to be thinking about that as well. You want your Overlords to be able to see the potential paths that they could come through, not just watching over the entrance from the natural, but some Zerg players like to flick their Zerglings around, try to avoid the main ramp, and go out by the 3rd base. So it's very important to just stay on top of what's happening. But the spawning pools are finishing up. Both players doing pretty much the same thing so far, except we do see that Life is the player mining the gas.
Yeah, sees that hatchery, as does Curious. Life see the hatchery as well. So Queen's going to be on the way, and the 2 Zerglings that are going to try and scout out for Curious also in production. They want to try and spot that gas where they can, because once again, Curious has the mentality of no speed just yet for him, no gas just yet for him. We'll probably see him fall back onto that standard double evolution chamber play that we see, but Life has already shown 2 builds that are very strong against it.
Yeah, he had absolutely no problem dealing with it in either one of these games, and it just shows just how in control he really is of this series. He's had this momentum coming behind him. Curious has taken out some great opponents, but Life really just seems to have his number as far as these builds go, giving himself advantages left and right, not even before any engagements happen, just the way he sets himself up at the start.
6 Lings in production here by Life. There are 6 Lings. If he goes for any more than that, I'm very scared for Curious, because he's not going to have speed. He's just going to have the Queens at the front. And this could be a big gamble here by Life. There's a Spine Crawl already getting down by Curious. I think he poked in. There's more Lings on the way. I think Curious poked in and saw that there wasn't that many drones there at that natural. And is like, wait a minute. Maybe there would have been a few more if he was transitioning down there, but 12 more Lings. Life is going to go for the assault. The evolution chambers need to come down for Curious. He needs to be held as strong. But even the creep isn't in position to actually get those evos down.
Yeah, the Queen's actually trying to shove that Overlord away. He's using his own to keep that away. If he doesn't see those Zerglings coming across the map, there's actually no Overlords over the center of the field. These Lings might go completely unspotted by Curious. He doesn't have any type of evolution chamber wall set up. He is adding on a second Spine Crawler. He has an idea that something is coming, just not what.
Well, he did see them there with the Overlord at the natural there, so he does now know what's on the way, but speed kicks in, and the Lings already get in there. They can try and block that location, try and deny any wall from going down. A second Spine Crawler goes down, but look how many Lings Zerglings he has. He has 32 out against 6. The Queens are blocking the ramp, but that might not be enough. He might actually take a lot of damage here at the natural.
The drones are already being pulled to try to stop this. He had the half surround on the spine crawler. He says, screw it. He's going for the main base. There's no defenses here, just the Queen in between the hatchery and the spawning pool, trying to hide these drones as best he can. The reinforcements still streaming across the map at the same time. He's forcing him to pull absolutely everything to fight against this, and at the same time, he's droning back at home.
Oh, wow. This is a really good play here by Life. He's denying a lot of that mining time. That being said, Curious is handling this very well as well. He will end up trying to crash some of these Queens. They move out into the middle of the map, and there we go. They do get taken down. Good transfuses, though, will be able to save them. It was a great surround. Curious has controlled this defense really nicely considering the situation.
Yeah, I mean, both players are at an even drone count now. Life hasn't been looking as much to just continue to put this harass on, but he's still keeping these Zerglings microed. You have to take in mind, there was no gas taken by Curious. These Zerglings cannot catch up to Life, so he's just trying to focus down individual drones, making the most for his money. And at the end of the day, Life does have a slight drone lead, and he's still running a couple of Zerglings around, getting himself as much information as possible.
All right, considering that he didn't have a wall, I'm very impressed how Curious handled that. Even though he let them up into the main, that was well done by Curious. It's the Queen advantage. It's the fact that they have the range, they can sit next to one another and transfuse each other, that makes it very hard for Life to properly engage into that kind of position. As well as the drones all microing as well, just in case you slip up, maybe go into that drone line, and then you're being berated by drones as well as the Queens. It's a tough spot to be in. So Life, I would say, to a certain degree, is kind of behind here. He's trying to catch up with that hatchery at the third base. And aside from that, Curious, he looks comfortable to go into his normal play.
Yeah, we've seen so many Zerg players actually, even in this tournament, just die when the Zerglings come in. They're trying to play for the gasless, and they even have a wall set up. You know, you break through that and kill them. So Curious has really shown us something awesome. The Zergling does get a read on this third base. He knows that this is here. He's aware of it, and we have a lair on the way for him. He's getting his Roach Horn. He's still sticking to his standard game plan that he had from the beginning of this.
This could be cool. We could see him really try and get out that Glue Reconstitution very quickly and then go for just a straight 1-1 timing and do some damage that way. Or he could just say, these evolution chambers, they're just for a while. I'm just going to make a lot of roaches, and, well, he's going to get the 1-1 in the end. So third base is going to go down for him. And unfortunately for Life, because he committed so much lava to that initial assault and to that initial attack, and then was cleaned up at a disadvantage in terms of resources lost for him, it's going to be very difficult for him to ever pressure that third base with Lings, because his opponent's always going to have more out than him. And Life wants to be focusing a bit more on the droning side of things.
Yeah, it's nice, though, because he's still going to be relatively close on the upgrades with his evolution chamber timings. When he pushed in, there were no evolution chambers for the wall, but he also, while microing to defend against that engagement, hadn't still taken his gas. So it does allow Life to catch up in the tech. The lair finishes sooner for Curious, but it's not really having too much of an impact, as the roach speed will still be relatively close between the two of them.
Lings are in production here for Life. Drone counts right now, 54 to 55, so very, very even indeed. Despite Life being set at a bit of an odd position going into this mid-game, he is still going to try and pressure that third base. And, you know, who can blame him, really? As Curious, he still never got Zergling speed, right? So he was trying to exploit that to the fullest extent here. As he does move in with these Zerglings, he has a nice wraparound on this army. The Roaches need to come down to deal with this. Otherwise, he would be in a very, very terrible spot. Keeping one Queen alive, but the second one will fall. Yeah,
he gets both Queens, a lot of Zerglings. He's even trying to just focus down the drones. Life is trying to get every bang for his buck on these Zerglings, being as cost-effective as possible. The upgrades are still pretty close, so not having too much of a play here, but getting those Roaches out for Curious, very important to keep this going. And Life still managing to squeeze out a few more drones all the while.
If Life were to somehow come in, morph in a few Overseers and come in now and actually contaminate all three of those hatcheries, he has far more production than his opponent. Why do I say that? Because Curious only has 2 Queens against 3. And actually, now that I say that, Life just morphed in 3 Overseers. If he is able to macro out of this and contaminate all 3 of those hatcheries and deny the production, he could overrun his opponent with constant roach production here. This certainly could happen.
Yeah, Life is actually, I think, probably one of the most used players as far as the contamination ability goes in this tournament. We've seen it almost every match. And now, the Roaches are getting into position for Curious. He's trying to get on top of this, picking off a few of the creep tumors. Life is giving some chase as well. The upgrades are still very, very close. It will come down to the numbers game, and even the Roach counts are very close between these two.
Look at this. I think we've sussed out what Life wants to do. All 3 of his Overseers are poised at the front here to go for those contaminants. I have to believe it. Because if he does this and he shuts down any production from his opponent, this is going to be an amazing move, an amazing swipe in there by Life in game number 3. He's moving forwards with his roaches. The roaches counts are very, very even right now. Very even indeed. This could be cool.
Yeah. We do have pathogen glands coming in for Curious. He's still ever so slightly ahead in some of those tech areas, as we have the infestation pit only just about to finish up for Life. The upgrade advantage, the +2/2 is still coming in for both players. It's actually still pretty even. We have Burrow on the way for Curious. I think it gives you a nice advantage in Roach versus Roach trades. You can heal your units up a little bit faster.
You know what's funny though? I say all that about Life, but Curious has exactly the same setup as well. He has 3 Overseers at the front of his opponent's bases as well. So if he wanted to contaminate everything, he could do. So there's certainly an opportunity there for both of these players to shut each other down, and then by proxy, it all normalizes out if that were the case. As we have now those Infestors on the way for Curious, whilst we have Life trying to get that pathogen glands as well out. I just want to see contaminates everywhere. I love the contaminate ability. It's great.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's probably the most powerful, never used ability in StarCraft.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely. And it's been more so at this tournament. Smart Zerg players have been employing it more. It's really nice. It's a 30-second delay on the larva production. You can delay upgrades, and we had some big shoves earlier that actually really relied on those upgrade timings being delayed, but
he just contaminated the infestation pit, and he contaminated a hatchery as well. So he's slowing down pathogen glands. He's slowing down his opponent's ability to get toe-to-toe with them. Meanwhile, contaminates over the other side as well on these hatcheries, really trying to keep each other's back in terms of that production. And more so than not, more so than ever, Contaminate is now being utilized in this matchup just to try and really annoy their opponents.
Yeah, he manages to contaminate the evolution chamber, researching the +2 carapace for Curious. So they're kind of contaminating different areas of their opponent's bases, probably the most accessible spots that they can reach. But we're seeing these armies get closer and closer on the right side. Roaches mostly versus Roaches with a few Infestors mixed in. Life doesn't have those yet added to his army composition.
And yep, what's he got? He's 60 roaches to 49 right now, but and that's in favor of Life. But Curious does have that 4 Infestor advantage. Curious also trying to get his Hydralisk Den down. We have Burrow on the way for Life. So these armies are matching up quite interestingly, and Life is going for the initiative. He's going to try and send some roaches up to the top left. There's already some roaches blocking him there, but he's hitting on 2 double fronts here, Nathanius.
I do like this play. He needs to be careful with how much he's invested towards taking out this right side base. He does press into the natural expansion with his roaches. The fungal growths help to clean those up. The Infestors have to decide whether they're going to come back or not. He is trying to bring them home to defend against this shove. He splits up a few into the natural expansion, buying him time, gets the queen in the main base.
He lost so many. He lost Infestors. He lost Infestors in the middle of the map. He got them with the roaches. And during all of that, the Infestors are all dying. The Overseer got them all. Life with a great pickup there. He's also doing damage to the drone numbers as well. This could be great for Life, killing off that many Infestors. He's got 9 in production to try and make him fly forward. He's going to have 11 in total whilst he tries to do more.
We have just roaches trying to be pumped out for Curious. He's bringing in the Hydralisk as well, but in time the lair gets picked off by Life, burrowing his roaches and hiding his army, and he still has the forces split up into the natural expansion as well. This army, he does have his own Overseer to bring over here and shut this down, but fantastic play from Life. He's also secured his 4th base at the same time.
Absolutely amazing execution so far here by Life, producing a whole lot more roaches. Nathanius, who needs Contaminate when your opponent doesn't even have hatcheries to build anything? There's no lava there for him to go and contend against Life right now. Curious is going to have but one opportunity, I feel, here. Unless he can do major damage to his opponent right now with these 62 roaches against his opponent's 34 before Life replenishes his army, then this is Curious's window. If he can't do damage now, Life will win.
He'll be able to get a nice army supply advantage as well. As still, the Overseer's coming in, getting those contaminations and slowing the production, but he's maxed out. It's not as critical to this game anymore. He does scout that this top right base is being taken, but it's also important to note is just the drone count. We have about 13 more, 15 more actually now for Life. So the army supply, when both players are maxed out, can still be larger for Curious.
I don't know why Contaminate gets me so excited, but it really does, because now Life is just, again, putting those cherries on the cake. Ooh, loses one Infestor, doesn't want to be doing that. Right now, the Roach numbers have been evened up quite significantly. Also, that Infestor number, still 10-2 in favor of Life. He's going to pressure this right-hand side base once again, but Curious is on top of it. I shouldn't lose that base. He shouldn't lose it.
He needs to be very careful, especially with the high ground vision here. There are Hydralisks that can pick off this Overlord that are spotting for Life. Not able to grab the hatchery. He's forced back at the same time. We do have Roaches pressuring that left side base of Life, but he does have a decent number of Spine Crawlers here ready to defend.
So well prepared for any attacks that will come along. Queen will end up dying at the natural as well here, further limiting the production. A good fungal to start this off. Another fungal as well to chain it. He killed off an Infestor at the back that was wanting to reinforce here for Curious. The fungals keep going down. These Roaches are dying off. Life is taking a great engagement already. Fungals absolutely everywhere, but Life is up in terms of supply, and now still taking that engagement. Infestor Terrans as well. Life is on the verge of taking this series 3-0.
He's bringing the heat. He's still maxed out. Curious having a rough time resupplying. No gas to produce any more Roaches. 17 away for both players. Life is pressing in now towards that third base. The Infestor's actually caught in the back. He's splitting off Roaches towards the natural. He's coming in now on top of that ramp between the natural and the third base. The Spine Crawlers are just outside of the fight. A great fungal from Curious, trying to keep things going here, but he has to cover so many areas at the same time, and his economy being denied on the right side. There's still Infested Terrans drop, picking out those Queens. We see Vipers coming in for Life, but with that Hive, he's also potentially going to get an upgrade advantage.
These Vipers are going to be the nail in the coffin if Curious can't find a way to deal with them. The synergy between Fungal Growth and Blinding Cloud is going to be an absolute catastrophe for Curious if he can't deal with it. And because Life did all the damage during that mid-game, he found the way to eke out that Hive where Curious did not. Life is going to have extra tools on his belt here, which is going to make it very hard for Curious to even deal with, more so than anything.
Yeah, and he's still got Roaches all over the place. Picks off another Queen in the main base. He's still in the natural, focusing down drones. And like you said, there's not even a lair for Curious. How is he going to get up to high? How is he going to get to those additional upgrades? It almost seems impossible. He's still pressuring this right side. There's been a Spore Crawler added. He does have a Spine as well. There are Infestors. So Curious is starting to get back into that defensive mindset. Still Life pressuring now that third base. He's got burrowed Roaches all over the place.
This has been a fantastic game for Life once again. Curious has held on strongly. He's been trying desperately to deal with all of these counters left and right and trying to take good engagements in the middle of the map. But every time he's tried to take those engagements, Life has just said, nah, I have the Infestor advantage. I'm going to Fungal Growth you up until the point where you just don't want to take a fight anymore. And now Curious is still maxed out. His army, supplies, they're dead even. 134 to 137. The only problem is there's at least one Viper out, and there's 3-3 on the way. Massive advantages for Life once these engagements come along.
And I love these little plays by Life is these Roaches are like sharks. Jump up, grab a few Hydralisks, go right back underground, and he's just been taking such nice trades. Here are those Vipers that you mentioned, combined with the Fungal Cloud. What can Curious do to actually take a fight versus this? The 3-3 isn't done just yet, but Life's not willing to wait for it. He's coming in, throwing down the Infested Terrans, throwing these Fungals, and getting Blinding Clouds on these Roaches.
Great placement of the Fungals, really waiting until those go down for the Blinding Clouds to land on the perfect units as well to really hurt Curious. The 3-3 is going to be about to finish, but he might not even need it with the Hydralisks and the Roaches doing what they need to do. The Infested Terrans buy them time to get out of that position as well. He runs away, takes a fight, survives for another day. And if he gets more Vipers with this, because he has a great bank too, I don't see how Curious can win these fights yet.
And Life also has more of those very cost-effective Infestors, 8 versus 4. Be able to regenerate that energy. Curious has finally found himself starting his Hive, but as that plus 3-3 finishes for Life. This is an incredibly nice position, so much extra damage, and when the army compositions are so similar, an advantage like this could be that nail he needs to drive into the coffin of Curious.
He's trying to get his Hive. He is trying to get his Hive because he knows he's up against it. Again, guys, this has been going on for like 25 minutes, this game. But for the past 10, it's been Life constantly piling on the pressure, constantly taking those small advantage whilst Curious is playing catch-up. He is definitely trying to play that catch-up game and has to, as now Life has 3-3. Once the engagement comes, if he gets the good concave, if he gets the good positioning, 3-3 is going to cause Curious a massive, massive headache.
He just needs to watch the positioning. He goes, actually snipes an Infestor at the fourth base of Curious. These Roaches being so active, and with that limited Infestor count, everyone is not, he can't afford to lose them. Gets a nice fungal off, Life retreating. He gets a fungal on all of the Hydralisks as well, just cutting down so much of these hit points. He's taking this position on the high ground. There we see the fungals coming in. Life is trying to press down this ramp. He's taking a 30 supply lead. Curious trying to quickly remax on the Roaches, but this fight looks so good for Life.
Army supplies very dead even. Some good fungal growth there by Curious, but at the same time, lots of good fungals here by Life. Life as that 3-3 is really showing its power, its might here. Life is pushing on through at this 4th location, pushing those Hydralisks back, and this could be the 3-0 clean sweep that Life wants to go on to the finals, kill some infestors, tries to kill these reinforcements that are going to try on hold for Curious, but at the same time, look at how much we have in the production tab here for Life. He's taken a massive supply advantage as he now completely ransacks this location. The army supply, so much in favor of Life.
A 50 supply lead for Life. He's even moving into Broodlords at this point, still continuing to try to burrow units, being cost-effective where he can, even splitting off a few units into the natural this whole time, trying to hurt the reinforcing forces that were coming in for Curious. Up 40 supply in this situation. This is so good. The last mining base really shut down for the most part, and he has another force getting there to finish the job.
There's 4 infestors still out for Life. He's going to send roaches not only into the main, but into this 4th base as well, which is the pivotal mining base for Curious as it folds, and Life once again takes big advantages here in game number 3. The Great Aspire finishing with the Vipers that he has. The army is going to be so solid.
The drones being pulled, trying to get the surround here, saying this is going to be it. Life taking out the last mining forces. He does have a few roaches and Hydralisks here. The drones try to get away. Curious is doing everything he can to hold on. If he loses this game, he's done. He's out. Life will go on to the grand final. 9 Broodlords on the way. This is Life saying, game over.
Game over. Rock, paper, scissors, and unfortunately you have no option than rock, whilst I have all the paper, my friend. These Broodlords going to be easily able to shut down anything that Curious can throw at him. The Armada of Death now approaches for Curious. And what do you have in response, Curious?
Well, the Skybrood makes its way towards the 5th base of Life that is now being pressured. He can burrow those drones, and of course, the game of whack-a-mole still going on in Curious's main. Those roaches attacking the hive, but now he comes in. That's it, GG!
The Broodlords are revealed, and they take it.
Life goes on to the grand finals to face Naniwa at the Intel Extreme Masters New York.
A very impressive play there by Life, and Curious is defeated. Life showing that he will always find a way, and now faces Naniwa in the final, as you rightly said. What a series by Life. Game 1 and Game 2 playing an absolute blinder against his opponent who, well, was playing a very predictable style, and then in game number 3, showing that he was able to attack at any location and transition on at just the right time.
It was incredible. I mean, Curious is one of those players, really rooting for players like SOS in this tournament. He just demolished them, demolished Flash, went so far through the qualifiers to get here. But Life, he's just been on another level so far, completely giving himself just build order advantages with the way that he read his opponent before the games even started.
All right, guys, well, we are done here for our semi-finals, but we wouldn't be done fully without hearing from our victor advancing onto the grand final, Mr. Startail Life.
Congratulations, Life, on advancing to the Intel Extreme Masters New York Finals after defeating Curious 3-0. 저그전을 못한다고 했잖아요. 근데 이원표 선수를 3-0으로 이겼어요. 이게 뭐예요?
그냥 게임이 잘 풀린 것 같아요. 준비한 대로. 네.
So I asked him, you said you didn't like ZBZ, you said you hated it, you said that it was your worst matchup, and yet you just defeated your teammate Curious 3-0. What is going on here? And he says, I think my gameplay just came out really smoothly and everything just went as I planned perfectly. 그러면 이 세 경기를 하면서 어느 순간에 나 결승 진출했다 이런 생각이 들었어요?
그건 모르겠는데 3경기 때 그냥 제가 유리해져서 휘둘려서 원표 형이 그때부터 그러니까 원표 형이 휘둘려서 올라갈 것 같았어.
So I asked him, at what moment in that series did you feel like I'm going to the finals? And he says, I wasn't really sure until the 3rd game when, I was at an advantage and then I just felt things going in my favor, and then that's when I knew I was going to make it to the finals. And, he says, I talked to him backstage and he actually wanted Naniwa to come up to the finals because he's very, very confident against Protoss. And that actually has happened. He will be meeting Naniwa, so I want to ask him about that. 나니와 선수를 만나고 싶다고 했어요. 근데 드디어 나니와 선수를 결승에서 만날 거예요. 그래서 그거에 대해서 어떻게 생각하세요?
저도 한두 판 지고 4대 0으로 이길 것 같아요.
4대 0으로.
네.
Guys, he says he estimates that he'll win Naniwa 4-0. 이제 결승 이제 우승한 지 좀 오래됐잖아요. 그러면 만약에 이 대회에서 우승하게 되면 그게 무슨 의미일 것 같아요?
그냥 다시 게임이 잘 풀릴 수 있는 그런 계기가 될 것 같아요.
So I asked, Life, it's been a long time since you've actually won a tournament. If you won this tournament, what would that mean for you? And he says, I think this is just a great opportunity for my gameplay to keep going, for the momentum to keep going, and then hopefully if I win, I'll just be able to keep going from there. Now, last but not least, I'm hoping that he has some words to say to his next opponent, 나누아. 나누아 선수한테 한마디만 하자면.
그냥 별로 하고 싶은 말은 없는데 재밌는 게임 했으면 좋겠어요.
Mannered Life, he says, there's not much I want to say, but I just hope we have good games. Now, give it up for Life once again. And before we continue, let's hear from our expert analyst, Todd.
Thanks, Mix. Fantastic performance by Life once again in those semifinals. I'm sure many of you are really looking forward to hearing about Zerg versus Zerg from a Protoss player, so I'm going to try to make this as good as possible. I want to take a look at the third game. A lot of things happened. We saw some very nice use of Contaminate, but for me, one of the key moments in this game is at the 19th minute, just before the 20th minute. Life gets in a position here where he has the watchtower. He has a lot of infestors. Can we pause here for a second? We are going to be looking very briefly at the army composition from both of these players at the time. 53 roaches and 10 infestors for Life. 53 roaches, 3 infestors for Curious only, 6 Hydralisks to help with this. The problem is, this many infestors with full energy is going to do a lot here. Life basically starts playing at this point what I would call dodge fungal, which he's very good at. He's going to catch a lot of these roaches, he's going to kill them. Behind this, both players have quite a bank. But if you can remove all of these roaches before the fight begins, from that very fight, it's going to be a completely different story if Life can get a good engage. So now that's what he's going to try to do. Try to use as much energy on these roaches without even fighting with the rest of his army at the time. And not getting his army fungaled himself. So he lands a couple good ones on all of these roaches. Some more roaches accidentally were not put on hold position here, so they're going to get in there. Curious feels like he has to fight to help his roaches so that they don't die by themselves. He gets in there, lots of fungal are being landed from both of these players, but overall, Life is the one with the more infestors, so now he ends up using a lot of infested Terrans. As soon as he doesn't have energy anymore, he evacuates with the rest of his infestors, and Curious ends up being chased down for a while. Look at his army. Everything's on red here. He has to use Burrow to regenerate. In the meantime, both players remaxing on roaches and Life. He had a supply lead for a very, very long time. So now he tries to finish the game without waiting for the reinforcements, which means Curious is going to be able to hold for the moment. But in the meantime, he's applying pressure on the force base on the right-hand side of the map with some infested Terran that didn't do all that much. So if we look at the income right now, okay, it's about equal, but the big difference is that Life, he has a lot more gas income. Those gases, they just started being mined from, and that's going to make a huge difference. He's getting 3-3 in the meantime. He's getting his final upgrades. And I think we can just fast forward through to the next big fight. Both players at this point, they are trying to assemble the perfect army to go into the next big engagement. So you have to decide exactly. You can tell yourself, I'm going to get like 50 roaches, 10 infestors, very few Hydralisks. You can decide. They both have the economy to go for their ideal army composition. So now we have like the next big fight. Can we pause for a second? I was actually surprised that Life went and engaged before he got 3-3 in this game because it was this close to finishing, but he felt confident enough. The thing is, he was maxed out and he had a better bank behind this. So since he had more drones, he thought that maybe if he engaged now, he would trade well enough to just remax and finish the game. So he prioritized a quick fight, or at least not waiting, over getting his upgrades. He thought it was more important to fight now. So we're going to see how this turns out. Can we have a quick look at the army supply briefly before that? Yes, it's pretty much equal. It's the exact same. So it's all about the concave. The thing is life, again, with all the infestors that he had saved earlier, which were pretty high on energy at the time again, now, he used all of his energy, he trades as much as he can with this army, and then again, he pulls back with all of his infestors safe and sound. So behind this, the 3-3 finishes, he's just gonna have to remax. He tries to evacuate with his army. Some Hydras here are gonna get chased down and die. But Life, he just spent his entire bank, so did Curious. But behind this, Life has more money. He could actually remake quite a lot of units behind this, so he's gonna go for another attack before his infestors can even regenerate fully. He catches some units here out of position. That's huge at this point. Losing these units is very important. Now, Life is 3-3, I believe. Curious is only 2-2, and he goes for the killing blow, basically. He's just gonna keep on attacking from there, keep on remaxing behind it. He's even getting the Spire, which is gonna make a greater Spire later on. He's already thought it through. He's considered everything, and he's gonna be able to get Brood Lords behind this fight if this does not finish off his opponent, which it is gonna be. So you can see, trading very well, 102 supply to 78. He's gonna be able to seal the deal and move on to the finals to take on Naniwa. Fantastic performance. Once again, I have to repeat myself, this was some of the best ZVZ I've ever seen, I think, from Life. He's looking dominant in this tournament. That's gonna be it with the analysis from me. We're gonna be checking in with Red Eye next.
Thank you very much, Todd. Wrapping up a very, very clinical semi-final from Life. The 16-year-old from StarTale Red Bull is through to his third consecutive American final. That's right, he's won the last two as well, and he will go head-to-head with Sweden's finest. It is Naniwa against Life in the Intel Extreme Masters New York final. That's going to be coming up very shortly. In fact, we're going to take a 15-minute break or so, so if you want to stretch your legs, get your cookies ready, do whatever you need to do to get settled in for the final. It's coming up very soon. And of course, you can get all the action via social media as well, facebook.com/Intel Extreme Masters. Make sure you're interacting with us on Twitter. And also tell us who you think will claim the final. Will it be Naniwa holding for Europe and becoming the first this year non-Korean winner of a major tournament? Or will Life claim yet another title? Tell us via Twitter. Include the hashtag #IEM. We might even be able to find something to throw out to the crowd in the meantime. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's the grand final.
Professional-grade communication tool. The choice of professional teams. Perfect stream viewing experience. Chosen by online streamers. Easy to use voice messenger service. Chosen by over 12 million gamers.
Communication is always vital when competing in tournaments. Winning a match requires perfect coordination. You cannot win by yourself.
Raid Call. Communication for winners.